Welcome to everyone that could join us this evening. Um, when we started talking to Dr. G about the idea of these case presentations, her topic was something that I thought was really important because I think that we are so focused as practitioners who want to continue learning, that we want to add skills, we want to add more knowledge to our toolbox, and often we forget about the patient experience. So I think Dr. G's wanting to talk about how to optimize your practice with, empathy and compassion, I think is a good reminder for all of us. So I think this will be a great presentation. So I just want to start off with a little introduction. Dr. Tanya G is a veteran doctor of traditional Chinese medicine with 30 years of private practice. She has a thriving multidisciplinary clinic in Vancouver, Canada. Her clinical practice is deeply rooted in the Korean monastic, I hope I pronounced this right, wandering monks acupuncture, and is dedicated to the principles of service, devotion, compassion, and love. She's also a worldwide lecturer, speaker, TEDx speaker, award-winning acupuncturist, philanthropist for Numa Institute Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the preservation of ancient wisdom of the Kiro people, holy people of Peru, and the Tibetan Buddhists residing in India. Facilitator of Transpersonal Psychology, Numa Institute, Vancouver. Dr. G is best described as a storytelling, intuitive belly laugher who laughs out loud every day and inspires everyone to be the most optimal version of themselves. So we're gonna usually we have the case presentation. We have the presentation and then a Q&A. So I think Dr. G might make this a little bit more of a conversation. So I still invite people to add their questions in the Q&A section at the bottom, and I will read it out to her. So whatever's written will be addressed.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for all your beautiful preparations and your introduction. And I would say just call me Tanya because, Dr. Tanya is Dr. G is way too pretentious. And my joke is, unless you owe me money, just call me Tanya. So thank you again. Um, I just wanted to say that we're going to mix it up a little bit. If you have any questions while I'm presenting, just put it in the box, and then Celine will vet it out and then share with me. So if any of the questions I'll be answering later in the presentation, I'll just let you know. So I want you to get value from our time together, and I am so grateful that you showed up. And for those who are catching the replay, again, thank you for your interest, and may your hearts receive this message, and may your clients receive your love. Okay. So first, I want to just say that today I want to acknowledge that each and every one of us, we're already good enough. And as Celine said, that, we already have enough knowledge in terms of technical ability to acupuncture. We've already been through school, and if you're presently in school, you're already learning. Everything is wonderful. There are some things I don't think they taught us enough of in school that you will learn while you're practicing is the basics of, I'm going to say, consent and empathy and compassion. In my opinion, I've been practicing for almost 30 years now. This is where a lot of the healing comes from. Let me give an example. I'm from the West Coast in Vancouver. And when I go to see my GP, which is like once a year, I literally get 5 to 10 minutes. Like that's it. And there is absolutely no way that my doctor can know me, and I won't even be able to share with her what's really going on with me in 10 minutes. It's a quick look. Okay, you're good. Here's some blood work. I'll see you next year. So it's not healing at all. So thank goodness that we do what we do, that our clients can come see us, but let us not be the same model as are the Western doctors. Let us be our own model. Let us, develop more of our compassion and empathy so that clients can feel seen, that they feel heard, and allow their own healing instincts and energy to take over, and we hold space for them. So gosh, isn't that amazing? We give them 15, 20 minutes where we're just being present with them, and listening to them is healing enough. So I have seen many different practitioners over the years, and I have to say that that is missing. It really is. And so I try to be the very best that I can be, with the hopes that others will do the same. And so I conduct my practice in a way that I would like to be treated. And I check in with my clients all the time, and I want them uh, to leave feeling better than when they came in. And I know that's what we do anyways, but let's take it one more step up. Okay. Today is about self-development, and I like to just simply call it inner work. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with the first case study, and I have three. This first case study I want to share in detail, and then I would like to ask you what you think, and I'll be asking you what you think happened. Okay. So the first case study is actually myself. And this was 25 years ago, and I had been experiencing severe back pain, severe sciatic pain. I could barely walk. I was in constant pain. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stand. It was really, really bad, quite severe. And I was rear-ended in a car accident by a group of young women that were, one girl was celebrating her 18th birthday, and she ran a red light and smashed right into me. Was not great. I went to see a fellow acupuncturist friend of mine. Uh, he is male, a few years older than me. We've always had a good banter. He's very kind, and I would say he's very compassionate. He still is. So I was face down on the table, and I was modestly draped, and we had started a banter about what was happening in our lives. And without warning, he took the sheet and he threw it back, and then took my underwear and pulled it down to expose my sacrum and butt crack, the top of my butt crack, in preparation for needling. This action has been done a million times, but this action had become very mechanical, and at the moment was unconscious on his part. And it left me feeling shocked, vulnerable, and emotional, because I didn't see it coming. My body froze, it went tense. I started to shudder, and then the tears came. And he was just as shocked as I was with this response. What do you think happened? Why do you think I reacted this way? And how could this have been prevented? We'll speak more about how it could be prevented, but I want you to take a moment and think, what happened? Why do you think I react this way? Now, you're welcome to literally comment and put it into the conversation box. But I also have something else I want you to consider. How many of you put yourself into my shoes and imagined how I felt? And how many of you put yourself in the practitioner's shoes and was imagining how he felt? This is empathy. being able to put yourself into the shoes of someone else and imagine what they must have felt. How many of you also have experienced this particular experience on the table that I did? How many of you had a patient that did that? Or has that happened to you? It wasn't until 7 years ago that I'd even know what the word empathy meant. I do this just naturally, and I thought everybody else did too. And I believe that empathy is what helps to foster compassion. So for those of you who didn't imagine what I felt or what the practitioner had felt, this is an area where you can choose to develop for yourself, because empathy helps to create compassion, and having compassion creates a space, a sacred space for people to heal. This particular experience that I had completely changed the way that I practice. The understanding here is that it's trauma, and we are all traumatized, every single one of us, whether it's physically, emotionally, or spiritually, but no one is free of trauma. Trauma can be healed. We can recover from trauma, but we've all been traumatized. And all of these wounds of trauma is what causes pain and suffering. So I'd like you to see the quote that I have put in our chat box. And it is a marvelous quote from Sun Si Miao. And he's the renowned Tang Dynasty physician. And I will just share. The quote goes as this: whenever eminent physicians treat an illness, they must quiet the spirit and settle the will. They must be free of wants and desires. And they must first develop a heart full of great compassion and empathy. They must pledge to devote themselves completely to relieving the suffering of all sentient beings. So is this not why we've all become doctors of Chinese medicine, practitioners, healers? Isn't this why we've done this? Is to help and support others to alleviate suffering. Alleviate suffering. This is our goal. How I like to say, the purpose to life is to love deeply and to alleviate suffering. And there's only one way to do this, is to relieve the suffering of others and ourselves. We must become more conscious of what we think, what we say, and what we do. And I had the privilege in 2019 to travel to India just before the pandemic. And I was there to volunteer at a big event. And with great blessings, I was able to have a very tiny conference with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And he looked me deep in the eyes. And this particular quote is one of his famous teachings. And it is that the only control that we have is what we think, what we say, and what we do. And that is all. And this quote has been really helpful for me in my practice, because I would like to share with you that since the pandemic, I have witnessed 14 deaths, non-COVID related, and holding the hand of each and every one of these beautiful souls, I realized a few things. In our practice, we may not be here to cure someone. Our medicine is not perfect. It's pretty close, but it's not perfect in terms of we may or may not be able to cure or help everyone. But what we are here to do is to help alleviate suffering and to offer deep peace for people, And I really feel that if we choose to do that, you can magically transform your practice. Something very mutually satisfying, because then you will know you've done your best and there is no insecurity. There's no fear of, did I do enough? Can I do better? That can all dissolve if we choose to just be present, which is being conscious and offering our attention, our empathy, our compassion, and do our very best in that moment, and then let it all go. Okay, let's go back to, oh, do we have any questions at all? I think we have.
Um, we don't have a question, but I do think that there are people who can definitely relate that
Yes.
they've had the same experience
Mm-hmm.
to themselves. And, I think from that, they always try to treat their patients the way that they would want
Mm-hmm.
to be treated, with compassion and using consent, respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. I will tell you that all those years ago when it happened to me, I was just like, I personally didn't know what was going on for myself at that time. So let's talk about what happened. So we're going back to the original story. I Why do you think I reacted that way? And I will tell you, I was rear-ended in that car accident. So in that car accident, um, I did not see the accident coming at all. And um, I was so badly damaged from that. It was still within me. So when I was face down, it wasn't about a sexual assault at all. It was the act of that being thrown back and this being thrown back that it caused me a feeling of being unsafe. And I didn't see it coming, so I felt vulnerable. So that's what it was. And my friend and I spoke about it. The first thing he did was he covered me up, right? That was very important. Covered me up. And he very, very gently had his hand very so gently touching my shoulder, and a very soft voice. He says, "I'm so sorry." And he said, "What have I done?" And then I started crying, crying. And then we realized it wasn't so much, he didn't hurt me per se, but the actions were unconscious. So I said to him, "It would have been nice if you told me what you're going to do before you did it. I didn't know it was coming." So this is what changed how I practice. Oh, there's my cat in the back coming to visit. Yeah.
I think that you're definitely resonating with people, that they're messaging in, and they thank you for validating the way that they practice.
That's so good. So good. So good. Yes. Since this experience happened to me and how I changed the way my practice is, I became much more conscious of how my clients were feeling. And and I will tell you, for me, it was hidden trauma because I wasn't even aware. So when we are speaking to our clients and I'm actually looking and observing for hidden signs of trauma, because sometimes people don't know or they don't want to tell you. And even in my intake forms, there's are very gentle questions about trauma. Some people don't divulge that information. But what I do say to them is that my intention is to be respectful and honoring of them. And I ask them to always communicate with me if there's any way that I can make them feel more comfortable. So no one's ever said anything but thank you about that. Everyone's so grateful to hear that. So I've developed a routine on how I treat patients, and if I'd like, I'd love to share the simple things that I do, and anything that I do. If anything resonates, please take it. If not, let it go. I'm not saying that what I'm doing is the way to do it. I'm just going to share what I do. So I've developed a beautiful routine, and it's I called the Conscious Clinic. Before I enter the door of the treatment room, I will stand there and I'll take a deep breath. And I'll just close my eyes for a moment and take a deep breath. And I become grounded and centered in that moment. And then I open the door and I'm always smiling. I go, I'll do that, or I go, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm very keep my voice kind of quiet. I have a belly laugh, and I'll laugh out later, but I want to make sure that I'm resonating on the same energy frequency as my client. And sometimes they're suffering, and so me bursting into the room is not what they need. So I just kind of creep in and smile. And I always am very aware that the lighting has to be not too bright, not too dim, just right, and the music not too loud, not too dim, just right. And the temperature, not too hot, not too cold, just right. I always make sure all my clients are properly draped. And the question, I check in with my client, and this is where I hold space for them. This is where the healing begins, listening to what they have to say. And I try not to, I've been guilty of giving too much, like giving too much feedback or, redirecting. In my maturity, I do less of that. And what I do more now is acknowledging. When I was younger, I wanted so badly for every client to come through to leave fixed, and completely perfect. And then sometimes I would, I grew up with a very what would you say, a very stoic Chinese mother that had no niceties, right? So it was like if they were drinking Coke and eating McDonald's, I'm like, what are you doing? You know, now I'm like, oh, interesting food choice. So in my maturity, I tend to acknowledge more and give less advice. And if I do give some advice, I would say to them, um, may I offer you some unsolicited advice? May I offer you some unsolicited advice? And most of them will say, they start laughing. They say, yes. I said, okay, would you consider doing this? Because I'll tell you something, you can give all the advice in the world, and your clients, they're not going to take it all. So you can always say to people, take what you can, do what you can. Every little step on the path towards your wellness is good, and you're the one that's going to reap all the rewards. I tell everyone, I'm on your cheering squad. I'm here to support you. Okay, but the biggest one about consent that I really would like everyone to consider is clients on the table. I am sitting or standing beside them, and I wholeheartedly say, may I please have permission to assess and treat you? May I please have permission to assess and treat you? I say this before I take a pulse, before I look at their tongue, before I touch them. May I please have permission to assess and treat you? Now, what does this do when you ask that? What's happening? Because there is something happening when you ask that question. What is happening when you ask that question? When your client says, of course, yes, what has happened here? You have now entered into a contract, a verbal contract. They have given you permission. So then you proceed very consciously. None of this, jump in, get them on the table, rush up to them and grab them. Sometimes you have that rapport with people and it's great, but it won't work with everybody. What if you adopted a more conscious practice? What will happen? Now we have a verbal agreement. You proceed with caution, proceed with consciousness. After someone has given me permission, I will then pulse, tongue, have it, and if I need to palpate their belly, I say, may I touch here? Yes. Great. Let's go. Before I needle, I always do this. I put my hand on my heart and I say, I'm just going to ground. I need a moment. They say yes. I close my eyes. I take a breathe in and a breathe out. I connect in my heart. I settle the spirit and my will. I settle my spirit and my will. So when I am ready to acupuncture, I'm thinking of nothing but the tip of that needle entering into the body. Mind is clear. Mind is clear. Do we have any questions at this point before I move on to the next section?
No questions at the moment.
Thank
Keep
you.
going.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so far for anyone who's still there. Thank you.
They're
Okay.
still there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It's so great. Okay. Here's a really beautiful tagline. Consent generates trust. Empathy generates compassion. Consent generates trust, and empathy generates compassion. A few questions I want you to think about is how do you think the patient will feel once consent is given and you have shown empathy? How is this helpful? Really, really kind of think about that a little bit, because the intention here is to up your game if you need to, or if this validates what you're already doing, wonderful. You're setting the scene to create a sacred space for your clients to heal. You know, I want to tell you a little story about physiotherapy. So, I recently was interviewing two physiotherapists, and the first physiotherapist I met, he intellectually has a master's degree in physiotherapy, smart as a whip. This guy knew everything. He was just awesome. But his mannerisms were disheartening. When he introduced himself, he didn't look at me. He was writing stuff down, and he was very arrogant in the way he was explaining things. And I felt zero connection with this physiotherapist, and he's incredibly knowledgeable, and just has so many accolades. I had no interest in being treated by him. I'm sure I probably would have enjoyed treatments, but I didn't. I ended up choosing another fellow who was so heart-centered, and his skill set, his accolades were less than the other one, but he was so caring and explained everything and was so considerate. And that alone was healing in itself. So I chose him. Okay. I'd like to go into case number 2. And the reason why I've chosen, by the way, the reason why I chose these particular cases is because I'm thinking that you would see these types of cases in your practice, because they're relatively common. Okay, patient number 2. The intention with me sharing this is I want you to look for the signs of hidden trauma, and let's talk about what happened to her, and then I'll share with you how I treated her. Okay, patient number 2 is female. She is 50 years old, and she does kickboxing. She had a knee pain and elbow pain, left knee, right elbow. She is fit, she is friendly, she's well expressed, and she's a mother of 3 amazing kids, but she's utterly exhausted. So I let her know that I was going to touch her knee before I touched her. And I had already asked her for consent, and she laughed. And she said, yes, no problem. I gently touched her knee in preparation to be needled. And then I paid attention. I just glanced to look at her, and her head was tilted back and her eyes were all the way up like this. And she had her hands like this, and she was tense. And as you and I both know, when someone tenses up, you can feel it. I could tell she wasn't breathing either. So I looked at her and I stopped what I was doing. So a few questions I wanted to ask you is the obvious. What's happening? What's happening to this patient? What are the signs of trauma? And what would you do? So of course, there's a million things that you could do. Actually, if anyone wants to share what they would do, please be very welcome to share. My way's not the only way.
We had one person suggest she's trying to leave her body.
Yes. Hey, can I throw stars up? I think I can, right? I think I can like throw a star or something like that on Zoom. Throw a
I don't
star
know.
or something. We'll just throw a little heart. Poof, poof, poof. There you go. Yes, very good. Yeah, she's disassociating. She's eyes up, hands tight, heads back. It's definitely a trauma response. There are a million trauma responses. Like for me, I froze and I shuddered and I started crying. That's trauma response. So for this client, oh, I forgot to mention she started sweating a lot. I hadn't even put the needle in. And not only that is she's no stranger to needles, as one of her child's diabetic. So she's used to seeing needles all the time. Um, she told me she wasn't needle phobic, but she started to sweat. Okay. So I'll just share with you what I did. This just works well with my personality is I stopped what I was doing and I kept my voice very quiet and I said, "Hey, friend, how you doing?" And then she started laughing. I said, "Sweat much?" And then she started laughing even more. And she said, "Let's just get this over and done with." And I said, "Okay." And then I stepped back a little bit and I said the three magic words. You're in charge. Three magic words. You're in charge. These three magic words switches the power where someone goes from victim to empowered person in a second. You're in charge. And the next three magic words I say is, I serve you. I serve you. I do this with all the love in my heart. I keep my voice quiet and calm. I serve you. Consent generates trust. Empathy generates compassion. This sets the stage for marvelous healing. When our clients feel that they are in charge of their experience, they become more empowered in their healing journey. We serve them. So back to the patient. She took in a deep breath because I said, how about you give me one of those big breaths? So she took in a deep breath in and out and she started laughing. And then I reminded her, weren't you the one that birthed out 3 kids naturally? And then she laughed out even more loud. And I said, "Girl, you got this." And she laughed again. And we did get through it. Consent, empathy, consciousness for the win, and humor get some bonus points. Okay. Do you
And
have any questions?
we have somebody who is sharing what they do
Sure, please,
to,
please.
I guess, get their patient into their body, is that they explain what they'll do first, and they offer a grounding oil that their patients breathe in for 3 deep breaths and a short meditation with a Tibetan singing bowl to get them into their bodies and breath.
I want to be treated by you. That sounds wonderful. Wonderful. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I completely support all of that. Wonderful. Does anyone else have anything to share? Don't be shy. Don't be shy. We're all learning together. Anybody else want to share?
Um, I don't know if anyone else is having this experience, but I'm finding listening to you very calming and grounding, which I
Oh,
couldn't even imagine trying to type anything. I just want to keep listening.
oh, please don't
So
type
maybe that's what's
anything.
happening.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Please don't type anything. Just listen from your heart. Catch the replay.
Yeah, so I would just keep going.
Okay, okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Uh, patient number 3. Patient number 3. Uh, this one, I have to tell you, he is just one of my favorite persons. This is a young man. He's 22 years old. He has chronic fatigue and eczema. His eczema is so bad, it looks like raw meat. He's incredibly stoic. He's withdrawn. He's got cold body, and he's pale, and he has a very, very introverted personality. I had asked him uh, for permission to assess and treat him, and he had the cutest response. He said, "Permission granted." And then he said, "Why are you asking me this question?" And then I said, "Have you ever been treated by someone who wasn't present?" I said, "Have you ever felt overly stimulated by someone else's exuberance and felt uncomfortable?" And he said something so telling. He said this to me. He said he had had a massage by someone who had just drank a double shot espresso. And he said her touch made him feel nauseous. What did I learn about this patient? You know what I learned? He is, oh, actually, I wrote it down a second here. Here's my questions. My questions are, what did I learn about this patient? How does empathy help me to treat this patient? And how can I make him feel more comfortable? Because as he told me the story about him feeling nauseous, I already visualized in my head what it must have been feeling like to be him and being like massaged by someone who had a double shot espresso. The energy flowing through this patient was all caffeine induced, and it made him feel nauseous. So what did I realize about this patient? He's withdrawn, introverted, and cold. And this is to protect, he shut down to protect his sensitivities. I asked him if he'd like warmth on his feet, And he said, "Yes." Just like that. And so I made sure that he was warm enough. And I talked him through what I was going to do. And I let him know he was in charge. And I also let him know I was going to check in to see how he's doing. And I told him that I don't drink coffee. And and then I told him that his comfort meant everything to me. And I took a moment. I closed my eyes. I took in a few deep breaths. I grounded and I centered. I quieted my spirit and settled my will. And I served his heart. A gentle reminder, when our clients feel that they are in charge of their experience, they become more empowered in their healing journey. As he warmed up, he started to relax. And then his humor came out that I hadn't seen before. And I felt ever so privileged to be able to get to know his heart a little more, something that he protects with all of his might. Is he traumatized? Yes. Does he share his trauma? No. Does he trust me in this space? Yes. And I feel honored. Did he feel better than when he came? Yes. Is he coming back to get more treatment? Yes. Consent generates trust. Empathy generates compassion. Okay. Um, any questions at all about that particular case? Or anything anyone else would like to add? I still have some bonus material I want to share, but I would like to open it up for anyone who has any more questions. Anybody want to share? Don't be shy. It's a safe place to share.
Nothing yet.
Okay. Well, it's just the Tanya show here. First time caller, long time listener. Okay. Um, I have so many stories. I'm gonna share a story. I'd like to share three things that I'm noticing in this day and age of 2024. I am challenging myself every day to be more inclusive, more conscious, more honoring, and more respectful. I now have a number of clients who are on the autistic spectrum, um, also many with ADHD. And I also have clients who are trans or non-binary. And I'm being as conscious as I can to, again, create safe spaces for all people to heal. And I want to share something interesting I learned from one of my neurodivergent clients, a beautiful woman in her 30s. She's on the spectrum, and she super sensitive, super amazing, super talented woman. And she was expressing some emotion, and I was holding her hand like this, and she very gently removed her hand away from me and said, "That doesn't feel good." And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Just like that. "Thank you for letting me know. um my initial response is to touch and tend. And that is my personality. And I realized in that moment that that doesn't work for everybody. And that was almost an unconscious response on my part. Even though I think it's good, it's not good for her. And so after our treatment, I thanked her ever so sincerely. I said, "Thank you for sharing what you need and helping me serve you better." So for those clients that you may have that are extrasensory sensitive, something to think about. I'm very excited to always learn something new, and if that is helpful to you at all, then thank you for accepting that new awareness in your practice. The If anybody else would like to share about treating autistic neurodivergent, please, this is the place again to do that. Also, I have clients who are trans and have trans men who have surgeries. They had um, upper body surgeries, and I always offer a top sheet, and I do say to trans men, I said all genders. I said, I always say Chinese people, so modest. Really, uh, that's probably not great for anybody else. And I'm Chinese, and I think I feel entitled to be able to do that. I'm just mimicking my mother's voice, but I put a blanket across everyone up to here. Doesn't matter what gender they are. I just say, I am in the practice of modesty, so I'm going to put this blanket here. And they're quite appreciative of that because I explained what I'm doing. And so again, that is something that may be helpful to your trans clients. And my non-binary clients, I don't know how you feel about the use of the pronouns, but I'm personally doing my very best to honor them and to be very inclusive. So I do have quite a few they them clients, and I do say to them, again, with great sincerity of my heart, I said, I am on a path of doing the best that I can consciously, and I have let my assistant know that your pronouns are they them, and I will do my very best to address you. I said, thank you for your forgiveness if I mess up. I said, um, please correct me if I unconsciously use any other um, pronouns with you. I said, thank you. And again, they really appreciate the honesty and they appreciate the efforts. So again, using consciousness to create this safe space will be very helpful for people to heal. Any questions, comments, sharing?
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Have you found in your practice, you had said that maybe about 7 years ago, you had really started to become more conscientious about asking for that consent piece. Did you find that there was that's when your practice started to change and you started to attract more people where that piece is actually quite important because they maybe can't read the cues, nobody asks them ever in their life, or so you have the more neurodivergent clientele? Or
Thank you for asking. That's a brilliant question. Um, I would like to answer that. I would like to answer it in a different way. There has only been two people that were upset with me asking that question. Every person that I ask that question to is grateful. And that's a lot of people. A lot. And again, I want to treat people in the way that I want to be treated. And I'm a bit of a princess, to be quite honest with you. How about a queen? I'm a bit of a queen when it comes to that. You know, I see, I try out different professions. I like osteopath, massage therapy. I try it all, um, because I also want to see what other modalities are out there and what they have to offer. Uh, but I have to be honest with you. Either my standards are way too high, or where there's just not enough education out there. And um, when you find someone that you resonate with, where you feel respected, you're going to keep going back. And sometimes, and we're not perfect, right? Sometimes we make mistakes. Like sometimes we'll do a treatment that it didn't go quite right. If that person didn't trust you, they'll probably never come back, you know? And so as a relationship is built with our clients, we hope, and we can check in with them, but we hope that they're honest enough with us to say that didn't work. Or that they're honest enough to say to us, like my neurodivergent patient, that doesn't feel good, rather than not say anything and never come back.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've been very blessed. I even during the pandemic, as soon as we came back, I my practice has been really blessed, and ever since from the very beginning, and it's kind of built over time. So like now, and that's what I say to a lot of uh, people who are new to their practice. I'm like, you already know enough. You really know enough. But what else can you do to create that container for your clients? What else can you do to show that you care? Because
Mhm.
that's what's missing in this world. You know? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jelly bean? You know? Yeah. I'd really like to hear from everyone else on the call. I really would. It feels weird. I'm looking at myself, talking to myself. It's really, I really want to hear what other people think, you know? I want to also make sure you get value for your time. So please.
Anyone else have experiences that they wanted to share, or maybe questions now looking back at your practice, um, that maybe you're like, oh, I wonder if I had entered the room a bit differently, um, would I have noticed different things? I think, yeah, if anyone has any of those kinds of experiences they wanted to share, or any questions.
It's like crickets.
I'm hoping people were kind of spent this hour in this meditative state listening to you, and they were able to get something out of it. So we've had a comment, and she says, I'm grateful for what you shared, because it's more
Oh.
common for um, for her to focus on doing a good point prescription
Mm.
rather than these more important aspects.
Mm. I have actually forgot. I wanted to share one thing. Um, uh, this may be helpful for anyone who's never done this before, but when you close your eyes, like I will tell my client, I'm sitting right beside them as they're laying on the table. I'll close my eyes and I'll just take a breath in. But I'm actually, with my eyes closed, I am focusing on the tip of my nose. And I breathe in 2 or 3 times. And as you do that, your mind becomes free of distractions and clutter. Try it on your own. If you do that, everything just completely calms and stills like that. And quite often my clients will join in. I said, I'm just going to take a moment. I'm going to calm. I said, I'm going to ground before I proceed. And they're like, okay. And they'll do it too. And then when I go, okay, and then I'll open my eyes when I'm ready. Challenge yourself tomorrow when you go into your practice, if you've never done this before. And I remember when I first started doing this, my clients are like, "What are you doing?" It's really funny. And before I would do it before I walk in into the room. Now I'm doing it right in front of them, and they're like, "What are you having a bad day?" You know, "What's going on?" I'm like, I'm getting all zenned out for you." And they're you know, it's really kind of funny. And but most people, your clients will feel a difference because you're calm and clear your mind. I'll go in for the puncture, calm, think of love, check in. I go, "You breathing?" It's quite fun. I always do that. Are you breathing? My teacher is Toby Daly, who does wandering monks wandering monks acupuncture, and the sa'am is 4 needles, and they're very thick, like the dong bang needle, super thick. 50 over 4, 50 40s, and the 35 30s, just really thick. It's like sewing needles. And I watched him needle people, and he clears his mind, and then he goes in with the needle, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's gotta hurt. And then quite often the patient will go, oh, ah, like that. And he grabs her toe, their toe, to distract them. He goes, "Are we still friends?" I think that's awesome. That's another thing you can do, if you have a good relationship with your client, and they start to release, their trauma, they're releasing. This is actually a blessing on some cases, because they're safe enough that they can allow it to come out, because our mechanisms to withhold are so strong that some people they don't crack open. There's like they freeze up, right? And then some people are just like cry. They don't cry. It's okay. And if you're a male practitioner and you're not used to having this, um and it may make you feel uncomfortable, because I had a conversation with one of my male colleagues, and I said, in that moment, there's nothing to do but hold space. You don't have to fix it. You know, you just have to sit there, keep your voice soft. "I'm so sorry. This must feel terrible. Can I get you a tissue?" You know? Yeah. That level of care. We need that. That's loving. We need that. Especially, to have a male practitioner. I'm saying that with all the love of my heart, the divine masculine, to have a man be able to hold space is really wonderful. Really
Mhm.
wonderful. Really. We all the women, we're maternal divine mothers, the great goddess mothers, and it comes very naturally for most of us, you know.
We
Mm.
have a question.
Oh,
If
yes.
you've ever felt burned out as
Mm.
an acupuncturist.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Um, no, and I'll tell you why. It's not from acupuncture that I don't feel burnt out, because I'll tell you, because remember, the energy flows through you. It is not from you. So to needle consciously, then you remember the energy flows through you. Actually, I have more energy now than I did before, because the other thing too is, when we develop a very compassionate clinic, again, it's not our job to cure someone, right? Our job is to love them deeply, alleviate their suffering. If we think that we have to cure them, if we're the only ones that can do this, then we will burn ourselves out, because we are giving way too much of ourselves. If we trust the fact that the client has the energy and the tools they need to heal, our job is to be their cheering squad, to give them a really beautiful session, and to smile and encourage them. So, Toby Daly, my teacher, his teacher, who is a Buddhist monk, says to all of his patients, Toby says, "My teacher says this to every patient: May you live a simple and happy life, and cultivate your mind, your body, and your spirit. May you live a simple and happy life, and cultivate your mind, your body, and your spirit." How beautiful is that? Our job is just to be the reminder, just to love them. So then you can avoid burnout. But of course, a trip to Mexico on the beach sounds good to recharge, especially November, December, and January. Of course, of course. May I also talk about, I know we're almost out of time here. Um, I want to say something really, really special for coffee drinkers. Um, I don't drink coffee for a reason. And through deep and profound meditation, I have entered into these beautiful spaces of meditation. And I was shown how coffee, because it stimulates us, we lose our ability to control our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And so I remember what the Dalai Lama said is the only control we have is what we think, what we say, and what we do. And when we drink coffee, which is really stimulating, we lose it all. So for those who drink coffee, would you consider drinking green tea? Because, Chinese medicine and all, green tea is good, right? But green tea is in its natural state, right? It's not as stimulating as coffee is, and it's not processed like coffee, right? And there's so many benefits to drinking green tea. I'm drinking hot water, actually. Very Chinese. Chinese, they call the Chinese hot martini. It's just hot water. No lemon. Yeah, so by keeping our energies as grounded and nourished and hydrated and avoiding those heavy stimulants can also help us to avoid burnout. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Welcome. I'm an open book. Is there any other questions you would like? Any question? I'm happy to share from my heart. Is there anything else you'd like to know?